latest international news and updates.
Good morning. It is now 4:30 a.m. on this Tuesday, great this morning. Wow, it's the start of a brand new week, and we're kicking things off with all the latest headlines. Plus, the series night special will be almost over, so stay with us as we bring you today's top stories. News 1. The brother of a British national being held in Nigeria after falling victim to extraordinary rendition has accused the UK government of turning its back, and called on Keir Starmer to wake up and defend British citizens. Kingsley Kanu, the brother of Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, a prominent separatist movement proscribed in Nigeria, said the UK government had failed to intervene in his brother's case. Up to this day, the previous government and today's government have not been able to accept or to take the stand and call the Nigerian government to say stop, Kingsley said in an interview from Germany. They should wake up to defend British citizens. I find it very astonishing. Nnamdi, a dual national and father of two, had been wanted by Nigerian authorities since 2015 after setting up a digital radio station, Radio Biafra, at his London home around the time when mass Biafra secessionist protests erupted in Nigeria for the first time since the Civil War. He fled while on bail in 2017, after Nigerian security forces stormed his residence in Nigeria in an operation coded Python dance, according to court documents. At least 28 members of IPOB were killed. In 2021, Nnamdi was arrested by Nigerian authorities in Kenya and taken to Nigeria in an act of extraordinary rendition, an unlawful interstate transfer, family, lawyers, the UN and a Nigerian court have said. He has since pleaded not guilty to 15 criminal charges relating to terrorism and treason, 7 of which he still faces. The British government faced a legal challenge from Kingsley Kanu over its handling of the case, which was ultimately dismissed. However, the judge found, citing the Nigerian court, that Nnamdi had been subject to extraordinary rendition, despite the refusal by a number of former foreign secretaries to take such a view. In 2023, a UK Court of Appeal judgment said the government position might well be different if the Nigerian Supreme Court upheld a ruling by the Nigerian Court of Appeal that Nnamdi had been extraordinarily rendered. Despite the Nigerian Supreme Court now having done this, Kingsley said the government had turned its back on his brother. He said the Nigerian Supreme Court ruling in December 2023 provided a clear route for the UK government to take action. But Kingsley has yet to hear from Starmer, the fourth Prime Minister during the period of his brother's detention. A spokesperson for the Foreign Office said, "We are providing consular support to Mr. Kanu and remain in contact with his family and legal representatives. We have raised his case with the Nigerian authorities." Nnamdi has monthly consular visits, according to his brother, who is able to communicate with him through lawyers and his younger brother. His family and lawyers have previously raised concerns over Nnamdi's treatment after he has been held largely in solitary confinement. News 2. Brazil has asked the UN to throw out plans for a new levy on global shipping that would raise funds to fight the climate crisis, despite playing host to the next UN climate summit. The proposed levy on carbon dioxide emissions from shipping will be discussed at a crunch meeting of the International Maritime Organization, IMO, that begins on Monday. Those supporting the deal, including the UK, the EU and Japan, are hoping the levy will raise billions of dollars a year, which could be used to help poor countries cope with the effects of climate breakdown. Brazil, China, Saudi Arabia and 12 other countries made a submission to the IMO on the 31st of January opposing the plans. They argued a levy could reduce exports from the developing world, raise food prices and increase inequalities. They wrote, "A levy would not deliver a just and equitable transition to low CO2 shipping, and its adoption may trigger negative, economy-wide impacts. A levy is a fundamentally divisive proposal." The countries also claim a levy is not needed to meet the IMO's greenhouse gas reduction targets. Experts said the levy could still pass despite this opposition, if the IMO took a firm stance. At least 46 countries, representing about 2/3 of the global shipping fleet, are thought to favor a deal. Some countries may also be won round through concessions on how the levy could be used, and the level at which it is set. The countries that are keenest on a levy are those most at risk from climate breakdown, many of them among the planet's poorest. It will be hard for countries such as Brazil and China to present themselves as champions of the developing world if they are pitted against what the most vulnerable nations are calling for. The impact of the levy is likely to be small in overall terms, reducing GDP by between 0.03% and 0.07%, according to estimates quoted in the submission. Brazil will host the COP30 UN Climate Summit this November in Belém, at the mouth of the Amazon. The country has been engaged in intense diplomacy for the past year, and stepped up further last month with the appointment of the COP president-designate, the veteran diplomat André Correia do Lago. Brazil has also called for a global wealth tax on billionaires to fund development aid and climate adaptation efforts in poor countries. But maritime campaigners said Brazil's stance on a shipping levy was the result of its highly export-dependent economy. John Maggs, shipping policy director at Seas at Risk, said, "Brazil is very sensitive, in thinking that because of its exports of large quantities of dry goods, the levy would have a greater impact. If there is little sign of agreement, the IMO could force discussions to a point. By long-standing tradition, the organization tries to seek consensus, but some measures have been forced through in the past despite disagreement from some of the 176 member states." Arsenio Domingues, Secretary General of the IMO, said he would focus on Ident News 3, the sudden transatlantic chasm over Ukraine will be laid bare on Monday when U.S. officials start preliminary talks in Riyadh with Russian counterparts about a ceasefire, just as Emmanuel Macron hosts a Paris summit of European defense powers to demand the US ends the lockout of Europe and Kyiv from the process. The US and Russia talks precede a planned meeting this week between the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, and the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, the first such meeting between the two countries in over 2 years. There are fears in Europe that Russia via the US talks will relaunch its plan for imposed Ukrainian neutrality and a joint US-Russia carve-up with agreed spheres of influence. The Paris meeting will aim to outline a European action plan after days of chaotic briefing by the Trump administration. The summit will also need to decide how to respond to a request by the US to spell out whether leaders are prepared to commit troops to a stabilization force in the event of a ceasefire. Keir Starmer will attend, as well as Germany's Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, and Poland's Prime Minister, Donald Tusk. France is determined that the UK is closely involved in all future discussions on Ukraine. Downing Street said it believed Starmer could play a central role in securing Ukraine's future by conveying Europe's warnings against a potential US-Russian carve-up of the country directly to Trump when the Prime Minister visits Washington, D.C. next week. He will then report back to other European leaders. It's not a role we necessarily looked for, but it's one the PM wants to step into, a source said. On Sunday night, Starmer told The Telegraph he was prepared to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine to safeguard peace. The Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking in an interview from the Munich Security Conference, said he was doubtful that Vladimir Putin was prepared to make concessions and repeated his claim that Russia was planning an attack on NATO countries next year. Ukraine and many of its closest European allies believe Putin wants a recasting of the post-war order as his precondition for a ceasefire. Confirming the Paris meeting, France's Foreign Minister, Jean-Noël Barrot, told France Inter Radio on Sunday, the president will bring together the main European countries tomorrow for discussions on European security. He said there was a wind of unity blowing through. European diplomatic sources said the Monday afternoon summit would also include Italy and Denmark, representing the Baltic and Scandinavian countries, as well as the NATO Secretary-General, Mark Rutte, and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. It will discuss what defense capabilities Europe could provide to give Ukraine credible security guarantees, including a plan for Ukraine to be given automatic NATO membership in the event of a clear ceasefire breach by Russia. News 4. More of the Murdoch family's betrayals, leaks, mind games, manipulations, machinations and humiliations have been laid bare, in the wake of a messy court trial that offered tantalizing glimpses inside the dynasty. The American journalist Mackay Coppins this weekend published a rare and wide-ranging interview with James Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch's second oldest son, who is often portrayed as a bitter rival to his older brother, Lachlan. What Coppins did not know when he and James began speaking in early 2024, he writes, was that the Murdochs were in the midst of a private meltdown. The nasty court battle over the future of media behemoth News Corp, kicked off by the somewhat misleadingly titled Project Family Harmony. The plan saw Rupert inform James, and his sisters, Prudence and Elizabeth, that he was anointing Lachlan as heir. On Rupert's death, instead of the evenly split family trust previously planned, power would go solely to his older son. He lost his effort to hand the reins to Lachlan in December last year. Detailing the many power struggles within the family, Coppins writes that one former News Corp employee claimed Lachlan had referred to the media side of the business as shitgo, a claim a spokesperson for Lachlan denied to Coppins, a possible echo of Royco, the fictional company created by patriarch Logan Roy in HBO's Succession, commonly regarded as having been inspired by the Murdochs. When discussing why the battle for succession saw Rupert pit James and Lachlan against each other, leaving Prudence and Elizabeth on the sidelines, The Atlantic piece quotes James calling his father a misogynist. For years, as power and control waxed and waned between the male Murdochs over various parts of the organization, there had been reports of James's unease with News Corp's reporting of the climate crisis and Fox News's apparent embrace of right-wing conspiracy theories. Coppins' interview details all of it, including James's discomfort with the company's support of Brexit and of Donald Trump, and prevarications on Charlottesville. It was Australia's 2019-20 bushfires that prompted a rare public sign of the split. In a statement, James and his wife, Catherine Huffschmidt, shared their frustration with News Corp and Fox's coverage. They are particularly disappointed with the ongoing denial among the news outlets in Australia given obvious evidence to the contrary, their spokesperson said in a statement at the time. Later in 2020, James resigned from the News Corp board. Coppins' interview traces the relationship between James and his father as it disintegrated. By the time of the court battle, James and Rupert had barely spoken in years, the piece says, then detailing a handwritten note from Rupert delivered along with legal documents. Dear James, still time to talk? Love, Dad. P.S. Love to see my grandchildren one day. News 5, Singapore's opposition leader has been convicted of lying to Parliament while helping a fellow party member to cover up a false witness account, in a case that could disqualify him from running in upcoming national elections. Pritam Singh, 48, Secretary-General of the Workers' Party, was found guilty on Monday on 2 counts of lying to a parliamentary committee that was investigating a fellow MP. The conviction is a blow to the Southeast Asian nation's struggling political opposition, which is seeking to challenge the overwhelming dominance of the ruling People's Action Party, PAP, in elections expected within months. The PAP has ruled the wealthy city-state since 1959. Singh's sentence could have a devastating effect as it will determine whether the MP could stand in general elections to be held before November. Singh had pleaded not guilty and his sentencing was due later on Monday. Under the Constitution, a person fined a minimum of SG $10,000 $7,400, or jailed for at least 1 year, is disqualified from running for election or holding a parliamentary seat for 5 years. Singh faces a maximum sentence of 3 years behind bars and a fine of up to SG $7,000 on each charge. The Attorney General's chambers had previously said the prosecution will seek a fine for each charge. Raisa Khan, who resigned from the legislature following the scandal, had admitted to making up a story she told in Parliament about a female rape victim she accompanied to make a police report. The former MP confessed that she lied when telling Parliament in 2021 that a police officer supposedly made insensitive comments about the way the alleged victim was dressed and that she had drunk alcohol. But Home Affairs Minister Keshon Muhammad said there was no record in the police files of such an incident and Khan eventually admitted to lying about the story. Singh was then accused of lying to the parliamentary committee investigating Khan. He allegedly told the committee that he was not aware that Khan had made up the story about the rape victim, in an apparent attempt to downplay his own responsibility as party leader, court documents said. In the 2020 general elections, the PAP won 83 of the 93 seats at stake to retain its dominance. But the main opposition Workers' Party stole the show when it captured 10 seats, 4 more than previously held, in its strongest performance yet since independence in 1965. Its leaders have said they hope to further increase the party's numbers in parliament in the upcoming elections, which will be new Premier Lawrence Wong's first major political test. News 6, the Cook Islands says it has signed a deal to expand relations with China, stressing that the accord does not impinge on ties with former colonial power New Zealand. Prime Minister Mark Brown said he signed an action plan for the comprehensive strategic partnership with Chinese Premier Li Qiang in the northern city of Harbin during a 5-day state visit to China last week. He promised to publish the accord, after New Zealand expressed concern about a lack of transparency over the trip and complained it had not been properly consulted. The self-governing Cook Islands, a country of 17,000 people, has a free association relationship with New Zealand, which provides budgetary assistance as well as helping on foreign affairs and defense. There are obligations between the two nations to regularly consult on defense and security due to their special constitutional relationship. Brown said his country's relations with New Zealand and other partners were not affected by the new accord. The Cook Islands will continue to make strategic decisions in the best long-term interests of our people, the Prime Minister said. Our relationship and engagement with China complements, not replaces, our long-standing relationships with New Zealand and our various other bilateral, regional and multilateral partners. The agreement would be released online in the coming days, Brown said. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon told media on Monday that the government had not yet seen a copy of the agreement. We want to see those documents, we'll go through them and then we'll have a conversation with the Cook Islands directly, Luxon said. A spokesperson for New Zealand Foreign Minister Winston Peters said he was reserving comment until details of the agreement were released, but noted the minister has complained of a lack of transparency and consultation over the trip, describing it as a matter of significant concern. In a statement released on Saturday, the last day of his China visit, Brown said the accord set a framework for engagement in areas including trade, investment, ocean science, infrastructure and transport. This provides opportunities for our government, our private sector and our people to benefit from enhanced partnership opportunities with China in areas aligned with our national interests and long-term development goals, he said. Speaking to media on his return to the Cook Islands, Brown said he hoped to meet New Zealand officials in the coming weeks to heal some of the rift that has occurred from our side. I'm sure once the New Zealand government has a look at it there will be nothing for them to be concerned about, he said. Cook Islands officials say they also discussed seabed minerals research with Chinese institutes during the visit, as the Pacific Island mulls deep-sea mining of nodules rich in metals such as nickel and cobalt. China is vying for diplomatic, economic and military influence in the strategic News 7 conclave. Edward Berger's Vatican-set thriller starring Ralph Fiennes as a cardinal overseeing the election of a new pope, went into this year's BAFTA ceremony with a dozen nominations, the most of any contender. It ended up with 4 awards, for Best Picture, Outstanding British Film, Adapted Screenplay and Editing. Accepting the second of those, Berger, who swept the board at the awards 2 years ago with his remake of All Quiet on the Western Front, which won 7 prizes, said, "We live in a time of a crisis of democracy. Institutions used to bringing us together are used to pull us apart. Sometimes it's hard to keep the faith, and that's why we make movies." Berger, whose film depicts a battle between liberals and traditionalists that threatens to destroy the Catholic Church from within, ended his speech by quoting Leonard Cohen, "There's a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in." The Brutalist, Brady Corbett's epic drama about a Hungarian modernist architect working in post-war America, went home with Best Director, Leading Actor, Cinematography and Score. In his speech, star Adrian Brody, who recently appeared on the West End stage in The Fear of 13, thanked the British public for embracing me and my creative endeavours, saying England has felt quite a lot like home lately. He then went on to thank his partner, designer Georgina Chapman, who is also the ex-wife of Harvey Weinstein, calling her an angel and adding, "If it wasn't for you and for my wonderful parents I wouldn't be here." Brody fought off competition from Timothée Chalamet, the star of Bob Dylan biopic A Complete Unknown, which went home empty-handed, and from 7-time BAFTA nominee, and 1-time winner, Fiennes. But there was a surprise in the Best Actress category, as Honora's Mikey Madison, who was also beaten by David Jernson to the Rising Star Award on Sunday, took the prize over frontrunner Demi Moore for The Substance and much-loved Hard Truths star Marianne Jean-Baptiste in Sean Baker's Palme d'Or winner, which also won Best Casting. Madison plays an exotic dancer who begins a romance with the son of a Russian oligarch. On the podium she gave a shout-out to the sex worker community, saying, "I see you, you deserve respect and human decency. I will always be a friend and an ally and I implore others to do the same." Meanwhile, Emilia Perez, Jacques Audiard's musical about a Mexican cartel leader who transitions while escaping the mob, took 2 awards, from 11 nominations, despite the ongoing fallout from offensive unearthed social media posts from its star, Carla Sofia Gascon. Gascon has taken a vow of media silence since tweets surfaced 3 weeks ago in which she aired Islamophobic and racist views. She apologized repeatedly, including on a tearful hour-long interview on Spanish TV, but was shunned by many of her colleagues on the film, including her director, who 10 days ago said, "I haven't spoken to her, and I don't want to." News.
I would walk 500 miles, and I would walk 500 more. Conclave.
We live in a time of a crisis of democracy, and institutions are, that are usually used to bring us together, are used to pull us apart.
Brady Corbet.
There's no such thing as best. I mean, I'm in a category with Denis Villeneuve, for Christ's sakes.
This film is really about this pursuit of leaving something meaningful, and I think that's something we can all relate to. So I congratulate you all.
Mikey Madison.
I wasn't expecting this. I probably should have listened to my publicist and wrote a speech or something.
Kieran Culkin.
This is also like the 5th award I've accepted on Kieran's behalf, so it confirms what I always thought, is that we have a similar life, but his is about 27% better than mine.
How do you begin to even approach a film that just defies categorization? And you start by taking the lead with
News
Jaffa.
8, Benjamin Netanyahu has said his government is working closely with the US to implement Donald Trump's plan for Gaza, which involves US ownership of the coastal strip, the removal of more than 2 million Palestinians and the redevelopment of the occupied territory as a resort. The Israeli Prime Minister was speaking after a meeting in Jerusalem with the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who defended the Trump plan as bold and visionary. Rubio and Netanyahu blamed Iran for the violence in the Middle East and insisted Tehran would be stopped from developing nuclear weapons. Trump's shock proposal earlier this month for a Riviera of the Middle East has been condemned around the world as a blueprint for ethnic cleansing, but Rubio and Netanyahu insisted it would proceed. We discussed Trump's bold vision for Gaza's future and will work to ensure that vision becomes a reality, Netanyahu told reporters after the meeting, which overran by an hour.
We have a common strategy, and we can't always share the details of this strategy with the public. He did say, however, that it included opening the gates of hell on Gaza, a phrase used by Trump, if all the Israeli hostages held by Hamas and other militant groups were not released. Rubio promoted the Trump plan as a breakthrough. It may have shocked and surprised many, he said. But what cannot continue is the same cycle where we repeat over and over again and wind up in the exact same place. Neither Rubio nor Netanyahu answered questions at their press event in Jerusalem. Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, said on Saturday night that he hoped the mass transfer of Palestinians from Gaza endorsed by Trump could begin soon. He said he expected Palestinians would be forced to leave by a resumption of bombing. It's a process I hope will begin in the coming weeks, he told Israel's Channel 12. Even if it's slow at first, it will gradually pick up pace and intensify. There won't be anything for the Gazans in Gaza for the next 10 to 15 years. After we go back to fighting, and all of Gaza looks like Jabalia, there definitely will be nothing for them there. Smotrich was referring to Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza, which was flattened by blanket bombing during 15 months of conflict. He said that ultimately the vast majority of Palestinians would want to leave, and that the challenges for Israel would be finding countries willing and able to take 2 million Palestinians, coupled with the huge logistical operation to get such vast numbers of people out of here. The planned removal of Palestinians from Gaza is a potential crime against humanity. The International Court of Justice is already examining allegations of genocide against Israel, and the International Criminal Court, ICC, has issued arrest warrants against Netanyahu and his former defense minister, Yoav Gallant, for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. That's all.
Secretary Rubio and I discussed President Trump's bold vision for Gaza, for Gaza's future, how we can work together to ensure that that future becomes a reality. We have a common strategy, and we can't always share the details of this strategy with the public, including when the gates of hell will be opened, as they surely will if all our hostages are not released until the last one of them.
The president's also been very bold about his view of what the future for Gaza should be. Not the same tired ideas of the past, but something that's new, bold, and something that frankly took courage and vision in order to outline. And it may have shocked and surprised many, but what cannot continue is the same cycle where we repeat over and over again and wind up in the exact same place.
That's all for the latest headlines so far, but don't go anywhere. Coming up next, it's your local weather forecast that morning with all the updates you need for today. Conditions. Stay tuned. morning. It's 4:55 a.m., and we're here with your local weather update for Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. Let's dive right in and check out what's in store for today across our great country. We're kicking things off with the southern regions where we're expecting clear skies in Sydney. Temperatures will rise to about 26 degrees Celsius during the day, with a light breeze coming from the southeast. Perfect for a walk along Bondi Beach, so enjoy your morning stroll. Heading further south to Melbourne, we'll see partly cloudy skies with temperatures around 22 degrees Celsius. There's a chance of light showers in the evening, so keep an umbrella handy if you're heading out later today. Now, moving to the west, in Perth, we're expecting sunny skies throughout the day. Temperatures will soar to about 30 degrees Celsius, so it'll be a hot one. Make sure to stay hydrated if you're going outdoors. In Adelaide, it's going to be another beautiful day with mostly sunny conditions. Daytime highs will be around 24 degrees Celsius, perfect for getting out to the park or just enjoying the sunshine. Heading up north to Brisbane, expect a mix of sunny and cloudy skies. Temperatures will hover around 28 degrees Celsius, with no chance of rain. It's a great day for outdoor activities, so enjoy it while you can. Finally, for those of you in Hobart, it'll be a cooler day with cloudy skies. The temperature will peak at around 18 degrees Celsius, with some occasional light rain in the afternoon, so make sure you've got your jacket and umbrella ready. Across the nation, the general trend today will be mostly clear skies in the south and sunny weather in the west, with a few clouds rolling through in the east. It looks like light showers will be possible in parts of the south and southeast, so keep an eye on your local weather apps for updates. As for the temperatures, expect mild conditions in the southern regions, with warmer temperatures in the north and west. If you're in the southeast, keep your umbrella handy, as a few showers could pop up later today. That's your local weather forecast for today, February 18th, 2025. Be sure to check the weather throughout the day to stay updated, and don't forget your sunscreen if you're heading outside in those sunny regions. Stay tuned for more updates throughout the day, and make sure to catch us tomorrow for another forecast on Weather Forecast Lads Morning. Now, stay with us as we move on to more news and updates after the break. We'll be back soon.
Welcome back, Australia. It's now 5 a.m. on this Tuesday, February 18th, 2025, and you're watching Australian Labs News Morning. I'm First Galaxy Australian 2K10. We've already given you the latest local weather forecast, but now let's dive into the latest local headlines, which are shaping the world right now. News 9. Peter Dutton has sidestepped questions about the potential need for a government-backed insurance pool for nuclear disasters after the industry's peak body exposed a possible missing piece in his flagship energy plan. The Insurance Council of Australia on Monday suggested the Commonwealth might need to underwrite a scheme to cover communities against nuclear accidents. Around the world, nuclear has a special insurance cover that is usually done by governments, the Council's chief executive, Andrew Hall, told ABC-RN Breakfast. So it's a conversation. If Australia turns to a net zero nuclear future, then we're going to need to have a conversation with the government about a pool that would cover communities in the extremely unlikely event something would happen. Hall indicated such a scheme would be needed even if the coalition's nuclear plans never eventuated, in order to cover residents living near naval bases for the AUKUS nuclear-powered submarines. Neither the US or UK has ever experienced a nuclear reactor accident on their submarines. The insurance question has been largely overlooked in the debate about Dutton's proposal to build nuclear reactors at 7 sites nationwide. Attention has instead focused on the cost and timeline for starting an Australian nuclear power industry from scratch. Countries with established nuclear industries have long-standing insurance schemes to cover personal injury and damage caused by nuclear disaster. In the US, operators of nuclear power plants pay an annual premium for $500 million. Around $786 million Australian dollars, in private insurance for liability coverage for each reactor. Asked on Monday if the coalition had modelled the cost of a nuclear insurance scheme, Dutton did not respond to the question, instead reiterating the threat of market intervention if insurers did not lower premiums. The Nationals' leader, David Littleproud, struggled to answer similar questions when pressed repeatedly about the issue on ABC Radio earlier in the day. Insurance is not mentioned in either the coalition's 6-page nuclear blueprint or the frontier economics costings underpinning the proposal. The Australia Institute think tank in 2019 described nuclear power as uninsurable, warning that if operators were forced to cover the cost of accidents then the reactors would be completely uncompetitive. In a statement to Guardian Australia, an Insurance Council of Australia spokesperson said it was common for insurance policies to exclude loss or damage caused by nuclear power. However, insurers in Europe, the US, and other countries where nuclear power generation is common have insurance mechanisms in place to cover liability concerns, the spokesperson said. These include liability insurance pools, international agreements and conventions, and government programs to establish coverage and frameworks for nuclear liability insurance. Guardian Australia asked the Defence Minister, Richard Marles, News 10, a coalition of prominent Muslim groups and leaders, including Muslim Votes and Muslim Votes Matter, have criticised what they claim is selective outrage in reactions to a video of 2 Bankstown hospital nurses claiming they would kill Israeli patients. The edited video, which was posted by Israeli influencer Max Vefer, sparked widespread condemnation, including by the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, who called the footage sickening and shameful. The video features nurse Ahmad Rashad Nader saying he had sent Israeli patients to Jahannam or hell. The woman in the video, nurse Sarah Abu Lebda, when asked by Vefer what she would do if an Israeli patient attended the hospital, said, "I won't treat them, I will kill them." The coalition of Muslim groups said in a statement on Sunday the speed, intensity and uniformity of responses from certain political leaders and media outlets was revealing. They said the same voices that condemned the nurses had provided active diplomatic and journalistic cover for ongoing crimes by the Zionists. The coalition said, "This statement is not about defending inappropriate remarks. It is about pushing back against the double standards and moral manipulation at play while the mass killing of our brothers and sisters in Gaza is met with silence, dismissal, or complicity." The Muslim Vote, established in response to community anger at Labour's handling of the war in Gaza, plans to back candidates in Watson, Blaxland and Werriwa in this year's federal election. Signatories included mainstream bodies such as the Australian Federation of Islamic Councils and the Islamic Councils of Victoria and Western Australia, as well as more controversial groups such as Hizbut Tahrir Australia and the Al Madina Dawah Centre in Bankstown and its founder, Wissam Haddad. Separately, other Muslim organizations and medical professionals have condemned the nurses' remarks without reservation. In October, the nation's peak Jewish group, the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, ECAJ, filed a case in the federal court against Haddad and the Al Madina Dawah Center over alleged anti-Semitic speeches. The ACOJ alleges the speeches made derogatory generalizations about the Jewish people, including calling them vile and treacherous. Haddad claims in his response to the federal court filing that the speeches did not contravene the Racial Discrimination Act and they were made for purpose of delivering religious, historical and educational lectures or sermons to congregants of the AMDC and other practicing Muslims. The coalition of Muslim groups also attacked what they described as the weaponization of anti-Semitism, saying criticism of and frustrations with Israel should not be conflated with hatred towards the Jewish community. They said that the frustration and anger directed at Israel is a direct response to its violent and inhumane policies, not an expression of hatred towards Jewish people. News 11.
I've been made aware this morning of a video circulating in New South Wales where it appears that a couple of health professionals in New South Wales Health uniform are indicating that they will not treat people from a particular country. Can I say how utterly disgusted and appalled I am at this video? It makes me sick to my stomach. As everyone behind me knows, it is the obligation of every single health professional to treat and care for whomever comes before you. The idea that you would single out a particular group in our community and indicate you wouldn't care for them runs against every single principle in our healthcare system. At a time of unprecedented anti-Semitism in our country, this is a particularly sickening video. I've seen comments from the New South Wales Minister Ryan Park, and can I say I endorse them 100%.
Those people subject to that investigation will not ever be working for New South Wales Health again. New South Wales Police through Strike Force Pearl have made their way out to Bankstown, and they will obviously be leading that part of the investigation, supported by information that they may require, obviously, from New South Wales Health and any other agencies such as...
A psychiatric patient having hallucinations waited in a major Sydney emergency department for more than 5 days amid an ongoing dispute between New South Wales and its psychiatrists. A patient list from a major inner-city hospital on Monday morning showed the 6 patients experiencing the highest wait times were all psychiatric patients. The evidence provided by the source had been anonymized. As of Monday morning, 1 patient had waited in the ED for more than 130 hours, or more than 5 days. 3 other patients, all having psychotic episodes, had also waited days, 187 hours and 52 minutes, 164 hours and 29 minutes, and another 53 hours. Another patient at risk of suicide waited 25 hours, and a 6th with a manic disorder had waited more than 16 hours. Guardian Australia understands the resignations of 2 psychiatrists at that hospital have come into effect. The state government has been involved in a high-profile industrial relations dispute with psychiatrists who have threatened mass resignations. Staff specialist psychiatrists, who work in permanent roles in public hospitals, claim they are paid less than psychiatrists in other states and say the pay difference has led to staff shortages and challenges in recruiting staff, making working conditions potentially riskier as more positions go unfilled. A spokesperson for that hospital said it was committed to providing safe, timely access to healthcare for all patients. We thank our highly skilled and dedicated workforce who continue to perform exceptionally. Anyone experiencing mental health distress or concerns should reach out at any time for help and care. Help is available if you need it. It is important to note a patient's length of stay, LOS, in the emergency department, ED, doesn't correlate with the time taken for a person to be assessed and or for treatment to commence. While the patient is in the ED, they are assessed, triaged, and treatment is commenced. Psychiatrist Dr. Kamran Ahmed said waiting for longer than necessary in the often chaotic environment of an emergency department can be further detrimental to patients' mental health, and waiting for days was unacceptable, as it could risk a further deterioration of their condition. When people present with a mental health emergency, they can be distressed and agitated. The emergency department can be very busy and noisy, which can exacerbate their symptoms further, Ahmed said. They're potentially suffering for longer than they should be because they're not getting the right treatment in the right environment, or the right kind of support. Across the state, the shortage of psychiatrists and inpatient mental health beds is almost certainly having an impact on waiting times, he said. Guardian Australia has also seen anonymised patient emergency department wait times for a different large hospital in the city's west from 28 January which showed a psychiatric patient with schizophrenia. News 12. Police are investigating if 2 alleged assaults in Melbourne were Islamophobic incidents after women in hijabs were attacked during the day. Victoria Police said 2 women, A 30-year-old from Lalor and a 26-year-old from Wallert were allegedly attacked by the same assailant at Epping Shopping Centre on High Street between 1:10 p.m. and 1:20 p.m. on Thursday. Investigators said both victims were attacked by a woman who then left on foot with a man. Police said investigations were ongoing, including whether these were prejudice-motivated assaults. There is absolutely no place in our society for discriminatory, racist or hate-based behavior, and such activity will not be tolerated, a spokesperson said in a statement. The 26-year-old victim, who wears a hijab and asked not to be named, said she had been living in fear since the alleged attack. She said she was randomly hit in the face and then pushed to the ground. "I am terrified to go out. I am terrified to leave these four walls of my house, something I never thought I would say," she told Guardian Australia on Monday. "My mental and physical health is at zero, even below zero. Every day, it gets worse for me. It was so random it has traumatized me." The woman said she believed it was an Islamophobic attack. "It is 100% because I am Muslim. I am born here, this is my country. Where do I go when I am attacked in my own country?" The other victim, who also wears a hijab, is pregnant. Both women were taken to Northern Hospital for treatment of non-life-threatening injuries. The Australian National Imams Council, ANIC, said in a statement, "The Council vehemently condemns the heinous and barbaric attacks on two Muslim women at Epping Shopping Centre in Victoria. These attacks represent a horrifying escalation of Islamophobic violence targeted at innocent people in our communities simply because of their faith. We demand justice for the victims and assert that no act of hate should be minimized or ignored. It is imperative to ensure the safety and dignity of every individual, regardless of faith." No charges have been laid over the incidents. ANIC also posted on social media on Sunday about Islamophobic graffiti in Sefton in Sydney's west. A picture of the graffiti suggested it stated, "Rasulullah is a dead pedo." Rasulullah is a name given to the Prophet Muhammad, or Prophet of God. The graffiti was reported to Action Against Islamophobia by a local who had been walking on the footpath. The ANIC and the Alliance of Australians for Muslims in a joint statement strongly condemned the graffiti, which they said was a reprehensible act. This latest incident marks yet another attack in an area home to a significant Muslim community, the groups said. The offensive graffiti, sprayed in black across a popular local footpath, is not just a personal affront but a stark symbol of the escalating hatred and bigotry manifesting in Australian neighbourhoods. And finally, News 13. A New Zealand tourism campaign targeting Australian visitors has been ridiculed for sounding like a clearance sale slogan and for being tone-deaf amid widespread public service job cuts and record numbers of New Zealanders moving overseas. The government launched its Everyone Must Go campaign on Sunday, in a bid to encourage Australian holidaymakers to visit New Zealand. The NZD $500,000 campaign will run on radio and social media in Australia between February and March. What this Tourism New Zealand campaign says to our Aussie mates is that we're open for business, there are some great deals on, and we'd love to see you soon, said Louise Upston, the tourism minister. But the tagline, set against photographs of people sightseeing, quickly became the subject of derision inside New Zealand, with opposition politicians and social media users likening it to a clearance sale advertisement, a marketing campaign for the apocalypse, or a desperate plea for access to the lavatory. The Green Party's tourism spokesperson, Celia Wade-Brown, told national broadcaster RNZ the tagline might refer to the need for toilets in some of our high tourist spots. "I mean, the queues are ridiculous." Responding to the criticism, a spokesperson for the minister told The Guardian that Upston was very pleased with the campaign and said it had attracted positive feedback from tourism operators and a marketing expert. The tourism campaign is the latest in the government's attempt to attract tourists, digital nomads and overseas investors to New Zealand to boost the economy. Prior to the pandemic, tourism was New Zealand's largest export industry and delivered $40.9 billion to the country. The most recent figures show those numbers are creeping back up, with tourism bringing in $37.7 billion in 2023. Australia is New Zealand's largest tourism market, making up roughly 44% of international visitors a year. Visitor numbers are sitting at roughly 88% of pre-pandemic rates. The number of Australian arrivals in New Zealand increased by more than 90,000, up from 1.27 million to 1.36 million over the past year, but we know there's more room to grow, Upston said in a release. New Zealand's overseas tourism campaigns have a long history of attracting both praise and criticism. The award-winning 100% Pure New Zealand promotion, now one of the world's longest-running tourism campaigns, is lauded for its catchiness but often scrutinized against New Zealand's inconsistent environmental credentials. Labour's tourism spokesperson Kushla Dangarmanuel told RNZ while she broadly supported growing tourism, the latest tourism tagline was tone deaf at a time when the coalition government is disestablishing thousands of roles across the public sector in a major cost-cutting drive. The irony of that messaging is, that's how Aotearoa New Zealanders are feeling right now. There have been so many cuts, Dangarmanuel said, and that brings us to the end of Australian Lads News Morning for today, Tuesday, February 18, 2025. I'd like to thank you all for joining me this morning. It's been a great start to your Tuesday, and we've covered a wide range of important updates from around the world and here at home. As we wrap up this segment, I just want to remind you that in just a few moments, our series night special will be coming to an end. It's been a week filled with special episodes, so stay tuned for the closing moments of that special series as we sign off. Before we go, I also want to take a moment to thank everyone for their continued support. Whether you're watching us on Capcut 2K10 HD or tuning in on our YouTube channel, your viewership is truly appreciated. Don't forget to check out our latest content on YouTube, where you can watch the last video we posted. It's packed with more news and exciting updates. We'll be back tomorrow morning for another edition of Australian Lads News Morning at 4:30 a.m. Make sure to set your alarms because we've got plenty of exciting content lined up for you. Tomorrow, we'll have more local updates, international news. Tomorrow will be Wednesday, February 19, 2025, so make sure to join us again bright and early. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and until then, I'm First Galaxy Australian 2K10 signing off. Thank you again for watching, and have a good morning, everyone.